Hi, everyone, and welcome to our latest and greatest episode. Today, it's the 1, 2, 3 of cleansing data, and I'm joined by our very own Terry Morgan, who's the Director of Solutions Engineering here at Integrate.io. Hi, Terry. It's great to have you.
Hi, Lindsay. I'm so happy to be here.
So, one of the things that Terry and I had talked about and why we wanted to talk about data cleansing is because for me, data quality is so essential in what I've seen over the years. And Terry was saying the same thing in terms of having customers be successful with Integrate.io. But when you think of data cleansing and data quality, it's beyond the tool that you use. So we were looking at the 1, 2, 3 of cleansing data as where organizations should actually focus their data quality efforts and what the implications are related to what types of tools they should be using, what the benefits and challenges might be, as well as some of the best practices. So when you look at Source as an example, it's really more in the sense of a business domain and people taking responsibility for their data cleansing at source, making sure that when something is entered into the system, there are quality controls, etc. And we know that in most cases, this doesn't necessarily happen. I can tell you many stories over the years where there was a fight between data teams and business users saying, no, you should be cleaning the data. No, it should be clean when it goes in the system. And we realize that no matter what, there are going to be data quality issues at every different space, part of the process. And then we have staging in terms of where you might want to standardize your data. So typical ETL tools where you extract, transform, and load. And then you want to standardize and change before it reaches the destination. But we're also seeing more organizations leverage ELT tools and other tools where they're extracting and loading data and then creating those transformations. So Terry is kind of the de facto expert in our circles here. And what we wanted to do is look at, some of what you've seen, Terry, and what those benefits, challenges, etc., of these three different types of data cleansing. And so I figured obviously we'll start at the source, and I'm going to pass it on to you to get to be able to learn what you've been seeing with our customers and what works.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. As you say, every company has data coming in, data at the source. A lot of that data can be internal to your own systems, your own operational databases, all of your own personal internal systems. You may be extracting your company's data from some of the applications that you use, whether those are CRM systems or anything really that is generating data that is useful for your company. And there is a common saying, certainly among computer science, but in the technical field at large, garbage in, garbage out. And this at a high level refers to the idea that our input, that poor quality inputs are going to lead to poor quality outputs. And certainly my clients that come to me see this to be the case. But the great thing about data is that we do have the opportunity to cleanse it, to transform it, to improve it, so that even as you're sometimes getting, all different types of data, some of greater or lesser quality, you can help resolve those issues. So one thing in regards to that is that oftentimes I see clients where they have human interaction with data often leads to data quality issues. And so sometimes some of the things that you can do to resolve those are by really implementing data validation rules, for instance. If you rely on human beings to fill out forms, those forms built with proper formatting and validation checks as their input, as that data is input. Likewise, when you're dealing with people, properly training those teams who interact with that data, And then really limiting access. Only the people who really need to access the data, should have that accessibility. When it comes to external source data that you're grabbing and bringing into your system from other places, you have less control over that data. So that's really a better place for kind of the next two areas that we were going to talk about, both staging and destination kind of
Yeah, I was
target.
gonna say, as you're talking, it kind of even reminds me of every time I enter my phone number, I always use different formats if they're not standardized. And I think, oh, this is gonna be somebody's hell one day. Because whether it's like a dot, a dash, or nothing, and that's just a simple example of
Exactly.
at the source. So, and I know that realistically, because integrate.io is that, data integration platform, that most of what you're seeing is either in staging or at destination. So what have you been seeing in staging? Because to me, I feel like that's probably one of the most common ways that organizations are really leveraging different data integration and ETL tools, but also kind of creating those standardizations and data quality processes.
Absolutely. So certainly an ETL tool is a perfect opportunity to affect that data, to make those changes and to standardize it. You have all of the data that's coming in, right? Whether it's from your internal systems or all of the different applications that a given company is ingesting data from, right? Like they store data in different timestamp formats, like you mentioned, certainly phone numbers. You'll get I know that I've had clients come in who are like, we have company names, for instance, and it might be Google, and it might be then Google Corporation, and it might be, so on and so forth. That an ETL tool is a great opportunity to transform that data before it lands in your target system. And there are some really there's definitely, as you mentioned already, Lindsay, like that kind of the question of, do I transform in the middle here in staging, or do I wait and load all my raw data into my target and then transform later? Transforming, and there are lots of pros and cons either way, but one of the biggest and most significant reasons that I see our clients transforming here in staging, certainly if you have security or compliance regulations, that data, for instance, secure or personally identifiable data, you can hash mask or even encrypt that data before it ever lands in that target system. And that is a huge reason, that's a huge pro on the side of this transforming here and staging.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's move on to destination, which I feel like ELT has been around for a long time, but it seems like now organizations are starting to leverage it more, or at least even use both sometimes, or they just want more of that flexibility. So, what have you seen at destination, and how kind of the pros, the cons, and what works and why organizations would choose to transform or to set up data quality or data cleansing at the destination?
No, that's a great question. And you are correct. I've certainly seen a real surgence of this transformation at the destination. So some of the reasons why I've seen people really move to this are, sometimes it's like the flexibility of it. Oftentimes companies are not really sure of exactly all of the ways they're going to need to transform that data. That an ELT, or transformation at the destination, allows you to load all of your raw data. You just move it straight across. You have access to all of the pre-transformed data. And then you can transform it this way for this given organization in your company, or that way. If you're not sure how you're going to need to use it, well, you have access to it all. And so that kind of flexibility is a big draw, I think, for a lot of companies. Now, this also, allows you to generally, in this circumstance, it's you have one team that is managing all of that transformation. The data just gets moved across and then it's handled by one team. So it also limits the number of different groups of people that might be touching the data and impacting it. Now, there are kind of pros and cons that frequently the tools that you might use to transform the data in the destination are very technical tools. They take longer to come up to speed on. That there are a lot of good, like if you were looking at transforming and staging, there are a lot of really strong no and low code platforms that not as technical of teams could help with. But once you talk about transforming in the destination, that becomes technical, and it typically takes longer to implement a full transformation kind of plan at destination than it would in staging.
And so, have you been seeing differences in terms of organizations, like you mentioned, where they might be more technical and so they're leveraging this, whereas more companies are trying to kind of, be able to meet the needs of their end users more. So it's more likely to use more of those low code, no code type tools because then you can expand them out and have a broader reach of users without worrying about, some of the challenges that might exist at destination.
Yes, that I've seen in modern day companies. You have lots of teams needing access to data, and your technical team might be really divided amongst their tasks. They may have lots of different things they're responsible for, and sometimes it's difficult, when the business team needs access to a new data source. It's like we may not have a chance to get to that right away. That low and no code ETL tools are a great alternative to adding one more thing to a lengthy list of tasks sometimes for a really technical team, that you might be able to send your business users off to the ETL tool. They can set up their own pipeline, the new data source that they need ingested. It's simple enough for them to be able to use. And so being able to divide up some of those tasks and share them with less technical teams, it also gives them the real ability to be like, go get the data they need when they need it, instead of waiting potentially for their ticket to finally be resolved by the more technical team.
Right, exactly. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that I also was hoping that you could walk through, because you put together these great questions in terms of how do organizations ask the right questions to find what the best fit is for them?
Thank you. Yes. So certainly there are some big dividers here as far as, the questions that you need to know about your data and really what your data needs are in order to be able to steer you towards one or the other or a combination of both. And so some of these questions, this first one, what are your security and compliance requirements? That if you have PII or PHI data moving into your target destination, there just may be requirements, that you need to mask that data before it ever lands. That people's personal information needs to be handled and secure. And if that's the case, like, you need to know that right off the bat. Now, it doesn't necessarily prevent you from using a mix of the tools, but if you need some of that data, obfuscated in one way or another, then you need to know that, because that will need to happen before that data lands in
Right,
its destination.
definitely.
Yeah. Now, how big is your data and how quickly is it changing? Um, Nowadays, there are companies that are dealing with real time to near real time movements of data, tons of data coming in. And in a situation where you need near real-time data replication in your target system, or that data is so large, you're just receiving tons and tons of it constantly, that might be a better fit for an ELT movement, where those systems, our very own, our ELT system can move data in 1-minute intervals. So moving that data across, it's a faster process than if you need to extract, transform it in on our infrastructure, and then load it. And so that's an important question. Let's see, this third one: how up to date do you need that data in your target destination? And this is kind of related to the previous one, right? If your data is changing quickly, and your teams and your systems need access to the most up-to-date data, at a consistent level, that's another really good reason why you might need ELT. Now, on the other hand, your data may be changing really quickly, but having that data refreshed only a couple of times a day, if that's all you need, then that still really, kind of leaves either option open to you. Now, how technical are the team members who will be, owning these cleansing tasks? Kind of refers to what we were talking about earlier, that depending on the makeup of your teams, that a less technical, or just, people who are seeking for an option to be able to set these pipelines up quickly in a drag and drop manner, you're going to find a lot more options for that in the ETL market than you would in the ELT. And so that is kind of a deciding factor as well. And then that last one: how quickly do you need to implement? That sometimes, we see people and they have months and months, or they have the better part of a year to implement a new tool. Then you have all the time in the world, and you have plenty of time to work on it. And lots of times we see people who are like, we kind of needed this yesterday.
Right.
And so the speed at which you can pick up the new software for it to be a less technical thing, might be highly desirable in those circumstances.
Definitely. And yeah, I'm going to let you talk to this one in terms of how should organizations really organize their data quality initiatives, and what do they need, those key things to make them successful.
Absolutely. So, I mean, certainly at this point, most modern companies are going to need to address their data quality issues, probably in more than one of those stages, that you're probably going to want to implement as much like cleansing and really inputting good data at the source as much as you can, but as we said, you don't really have control over external systems that are delivering data to you. And most modern companies at this point have many of those. So given that this is the case, trying to coordinate those efforts by clearly defining within your company, clearly defining the standards that you're trying to achieve, and communicating those goals. So, part of this is that idea of standardized data. Okay, well, what is the standard we're trying to achieve here, right? How do we want in that target system, how do we want that data to end up so that it's really usable and accessible across the board? And then you're going to need to thoroughly train those teams who are interacting with that data, so that everyone's on board. They know what this goal is. It's clearly communicated. And then, kind of as we referred to earlier, just limiting the access to the members of the team who have been trained and who are all on board with that plan.
Great. These are really great. And it's so funny because what you talk about is aligned to obviously what I've seen over the years. And so it's always great when kind of what you see is also what's being used, to make organizations successful. And so with that, we're going to do something that I haven't done before. Excuse me. And we're going to share your screen, and you're actually going to give a demo.
Yes.
So off we go.
Okay, terrific. Well, Okay, I put together a demonstration of just some just quick and easy ways that I've seen, some of the most common ways that I've seen clients needing to transform their data. So we can kind of look at how quick this could be. So first, welcome to the Integrate.io ETL platform. And we are just going to quickly a here we go, an ETL platform. I'll just call this the LinkedIn package. Okay, so once we're inside here, this is really where we're going to set up that ETL platform. Now, every ETL platform, has the extract, transform, and load stages. So our pipeline here is going to begin with a data source. Now, I decided we were going to bring in just a table from a database. So I'll grab that. And this component is set up by selecting the database I want to extract that data from. And then I just have a customer table in here. I figured we'd just go with something basic. So I'll input that. Finally, this is where the component connects to that database table. So I'm going to select all of these fields. You have the option here to pick and choose or bring them all across. In this data set, we have names and email addresses and a variety of dates. So I'm just going to save that. Now, when we come back here, transformation is really the piece here. Like I mentioned, this was our ETL platform. This is where we differentiate from an ELT movement. That certainly we're going to extract from a source and load to a destination, but here we have the opportunity to also transform that data in staging before it lands in that target destination. But this is also a low to no code platform. So we try to make it as easy and straightforward while still giving our users lots of functionality. So there are lots of transformation components in this list. For today, I'm going to focus on the select component. The rest of these are all fantastic no-code components that perform table-level transformations. So joins and filters, aggregation is available in here. But for today, we're going to use the select component because it allows us to transform the data at a field level. So this is when I want to make one change to a given field. So I'm going to add this component to my pipeline. Just connect them up like that. And then autofill will bring in all of those fields. Now, in here, like I said, we looked at that data set real quick. We have some PII data that we may not want, in plain text when it lands in our data warehouse. For instance, this email field. If I open this icon here, it opens our expression editor. And maybe I don't want that email field in my data warehouse. That's, maybe too secure. And if it is, I have some options. I can hash that email address. I could mask it. In here, I actually even have options for field level encryption. So if I needed to encrypt it because maybe I needed it decrypted later at some point for some special teams, I could do that. I am going to use this SHA-256 hashing function with this email address really quickly. When I hover over it, we can see the tooltip. If I click on its name, it'll show up over here in my expression, and then I just put my field inside the parentheses. And then when this executes, it will hash this email address so that it is completely undecipherable on the other side. So I'm going to save that. And you can see that now here on line 5, I have that expression and the name of my field remains the same. I can rename those columns if I need. But let's say maybe that I don't want the whole email address to be available in my target destination, but maybe I do want to extract out the domain of that email address. I can create a new column. I'll click on this plus icon, and now I have a blank one. And I'm going to open that expression editor again and go find that field name. So that was my email field. Then I can come back to my functions. Maybe I'm just looking to extract. So I might use a string function to pull part of that string out of there. Now, I am looking specifically, I'm looking for this string split function. Let me put my cursor at the beginning and I'll click on the name. And I would like to extract everything. An email address is always going to have an @ symbol. So I come back and I look at that tooltip. And so I'm looking for that @ symbol. You can see that in the syntax, I'm passing in the string of the email itself and then defining the delimiter, the thing that divides it. Whoops, not that one. So I'm going to select that @ So it's going to split my string on that @ and I'm going to close my parentheses. Now the last thing is it's going to split it. So I'm going to have a first part and a second part of that ending string. And I'm actually looking for that second part. But this is, the first part is going to be kind of part 0, and the second part will be part 1. And so using this syntax of a period and a number, or a $ rather, and then 1 is going to give me the second part, everything that comes after that @ symbol. So I'm going to save that. And then I'll give this new column a name. I'm going to call it domain. I'll leave it lowercase like all the others. Now I just wanted to show you one more transformation that anyone who works with data I often see wanting to standardize timestamps. Timestamps can come in any format, it seems like. So let's take one of our timestamps here, maybe this create date, and I'll open that expression editor again. Now, we support any timestamp you can imagine, even to like custom timestamps in here. Whoops, let's see. Now, I wanted to open this, here we are, this folder, the cast and parse. And I was looking for this to-date custom format timestamp. So this is going to convert any custom string type of timestamp into a date time data type. And maybe that's our target. That's our standard in our target system is date time. That's what we're looking for. And so if that were the case, I could use this function to convert, let's say my create date, maybe it's coming in as a 4-digit year / 2-digit month, 2-digit day. So if I wanted to use this function, I put my cursor at the front again, and I'll put the name of it there, and then I'll open the parenthesis, and then I'm going to pass in that custom string timestamp, and then I'm going to define the format. I need to tell the component what format that timestamp is coming in as right now. So I can 4-digit year / 2-digit month / 2-digit day. And then I'll close my parentheses. And then it will be able to recognize my timestamp and take it. And as you can see here, the output of this function is going to be a date time timestamp. So I can save that. And now when this ETL pipeline executes and this component executes, we're going to perform these 3 different data cleansing and standardizing functions really here. We're going to hash this email address. We're going to extract from that email address the domain. And then we're going to transform this timestamp into a standard date time data type of a timestamp. So I can save this. And then maybe at this point, we're ready to pass this data on, and perhaps I'm using Snowflake as my data warehouse. And so the last step in building this pipeline would just be to define where exactly I want to save that data in Snowflake. Maybe I'm just going to call it my customer table over there as well. I go ahead and create that table if it doesn't exist. I select an operation type. How do I want to load that data? Maybe this pipeline is going to run every day. And so I'm going to merge new data with the existing data. Now I do have options here to run SQL in that data warehouse. So this is one of those places in the platform where you can really combine both transforming in the midst of the process and staging, as well as I could could run stored procedures or SQL transformations in Snowflake from inside this component, and they would execute. The post-action SQL would execute after that new data is loaded. So that's an option that we have here. But the final step is just mapping those columns. So I'll autofill. Now, because I chose a merge operation type, the component's going to remind me to choose a merge key, and this customer ID would be that merge key here. And in those 3 short steps, we built an ETL pipeline that's going to transform that data. Before it loads it, I can just save that. And then we're ready to go. And that's all there is to it, Lindsay.
Terry, thank you so much. I have to admit, I'm probably a little bit too excited that we actually got a demo on this because I really wasn't sure. I also wanted to say, like, it's just nice that it really is. Obviously, you never want to call ETL or any of these things simplistic, but based on what you really can do and how you create it, it's a simple way to be able to manage those data pipelines.
We try to make it as simple as possible, for sure, and it can be. Yeah.
And I think it also highlights kind of what organizations might need to know or what they should consider as well. So I think it ties really nicely. I want to thank you again for being our expert of the week for this episode. And for anyone who's interested in learning more, please come and to the website to download the demo and to have access. And I thank you so much, Terry, for being with us. And I look forward to seeing everybody virtually online at our next episode.
Thank you so much.